Hello, travel biz owner. Welcome to my corner of the travel industry, the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're ready to have fun, be inspired, get clarity, and take action in your travel business, then you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Hey there, Rita here. So glad that you are here for another episode of the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast. I don't know about you, but these past couple of weeks have been a whirlwind. I literally just wrapped up the first day of the Plan Your Year workshop. So it's day one of day two. Actually, when you're hearing this, it's probably day two of day two on the Plan Your Year workshop. So I host this workshop every single year for travel advisors to really get ahead of the planning game. And one of the big things that I heard loud and clear last year, because I normally did it the week before Thanksgiving, and they were like, there's not enough time to start implementing this because obviously all the holidays are around that time. So we're doing it a bit earlier this year so that there is more like 3 months, almost the full quarter, where you can get your I was going to say week, your year set up, at least give it a roadmap. I do like to say whatever plan that you do create, you're able to tweak. It shouldn't be something that's set in stone, but just a really great guide, just in case something in life pops up or you decide to change how you operate or anything like that. So that has given me a little bit of inspiration for today's episode. I know some of you are still waiting for that lead generation tactics for 2026, and I just have not had the time yet to research. So I'm hoping maybe either in the next coming days, I'm hoping at least next week it does come out, so stay tuned for that. Also, something that's happening next week, so the 14th through the 17th, if you haven't heard, Host Agency Reviews is doing their first annual tech week called Hardwired. So it's 4 days. It's next Tuesday through Friday. So you'll get keynotes. There's going to be some feature sessions and panels. I feel like everybody's favorite day, aside from hearing some education on technology, is going to be Friday, which is demo day. If you've been in the market for technology for your business, or you're trying to change the technology that you have in your business, Demo Day is going to feature demos and Q&As back to back of 14 different tech providers within the travel industry. And that alone is enough reason that for you to be registered for Hardwired. So you just have to go to har.news/Hardwired. And when I say har, I mean HAR. So har.news/HARwired, WIRED, to register for that. This one is, I was thinking, because I feel like we might need a little bit of a confidence boost. But I feel like this is also a lot of things that have come up this past week. And I'm I feel like this is people should already know this stuff. But obviously if it's coming back, people don't know all these things. So let's chat on this, kind of reminders of how to be a really great business owner and just things that you should be aware of as a travel advisor and a travel agency owner, because that's what you mostly are. I mean, if you're listening to the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur Podcast, it is because you have a business in the travel industry. And that business is most likely that you have a travel agency. And I say that because that's who I do a lot of work with. And that's where really the inspiration behind this podcast came. Could you not be in the travel industry? Could you not be a travel advisor and still get value? You certainly can. But this is going to be some hyper specific, not really in any sort of order. So let's just dive in, because I feel like there's 7 points at least that I want to be making. So my first reminder for travel advisors is a double. It's you need legal agreements, legal contracts, and you need E&O insurance. I don't care what your host agency has said. You need your own policy to cover you. Now, I know this, and Like, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financial expert. Like, I'm not a financial, like, I'm not an accountant or anything. So please definitely get the verification that you need from those people. But if your host agency has been telling you that their E&O policy is going to cover you in case of any oopsies that you might have, I'm a little bit skeptical about that statement. And it's not just me. Like, thankfully, the E&O guy, our friend at Berkshire Hathaway, Miguel Campos, he affirms what I am saying. And if you haven't already tuned into that session at Prep for Wave Week, definitely tune in. You can still register for it and watch all the recordings if you'd like. But it's, and I don't want to say that they're lying to you. Because I don't feel like they're lying to you. The thing with E&O insurance, just like any other insurance, is that there's limits on the policy. So let's say your host agency has X amount on their coverage, but what happens if in January another travel advisor within that host agency branch has to use a lot of that limit, most of that limit, all of that limit? Then you're kind of SOL for your business. So this is why it's important. Like, it's great that and I feel like host agencies should have, at least for their own liability, they should have their own E&O policy. But you should not assume that it covers you, even if if they mention that it does cover you. I would still go and get your own policy, even if you're a new travel advisor, because you don't want, there's just so much risks. And again, like I go back to Miguel's session at Prep for Wave Week, there's too much fraud. There's too much scamming, especially with AI now that's happening, that you just can't go without an insurance policy for your business. And this goes for every business owner should have some sort of insurance for their business. Like, I think about if you want to get work done around your house, you're most likely looking for a plumber, HVAC person, carpenter, whatever, that is licensed with the state, and also insured in case they do make an oopsies. So if we, as clients of other professionals, are looking for those professionals to have insurance, we also need to have insurance. So I had to get that first and foremost. Similar with agreements, you need to make sure that you have agreements. And I definitely recommend working with an attorney to get your agreements so that they're personal and they're customized. So, I mean, if you've got to go with a template to help with expenses in the beginning, all right, but it's not going to be like, I myself am going through a process right now where I used an agreement for something. Thankfully, didn't get in trouble or anything like that. But I know that I'm having a wider reach, and I was like, I cannot have my Swiss cheese agreement covering for that. Like, I need to have an agreement that an attorney has looked at to make sure that my business and all of my things that need to be protected are protected. So just a friendly heads up reminder on that. This is just business things that need to happen for every business. It's not just only as a travel agency owner. Something else that's kind of come up, and so this reminder is really, you need to communicate your process and your boundaries with your clients in your marketing. So it's one thing to have some sort of process, but if you're not communicating how you work with your clients to your clients, it's kind of like a moot point. And this can come in different forms. Like, my process is that we do the agreements, you look them over. If they're good for you, you sign the agreement, pay my fee. Then I get started in the research. I present you with some options. Once you're okay with the options, once we whittle it down, we finalize the itinerary. I book the items for you. Then you can coast until it's time to go on your trip. You see that that is its own process itself. And so you need to communicate that up front. And also it's not only part of like the client's experience, this is part of you like prepping people and getting them to understand like what the difference is between booking it themselves and booking it with a professional by you communicating with these items in your marketing. So maybe this is an article that you're doing, maybe you're doing some sort of like case study video or like a podcast episode where maybe even like invite one of your clients. I did that on the Cruise Retreat podcast. I invited one of my clients just to talk about his experience working with me. But this is going to help you out too, so that people are very aware of like what it's like to work with you. Because I'll never forget, because I had the Cruise Retreat podcast and because I communicated a lot about how I work and like the different nuances in that space, like one of the people that had come up to me was like, oh yeah, I know everything because I follow your podcast. I've been on this, I've been on that. You say it on social media. So this does need to be part of your marketing. And like one of the ideas that I had for you for specifically for social media is if you wanted to create like a what it's like to work with me series, and you can feature like some case studies, or you can like position it like, okay, you want to plan a trip, you don't want to, like, this is what you do when you need to come to me, or this is what happens after you've signed your contract, this is what I do next. But like break it up into chunks, because one video series on social media right now are super popular. People love that, especially when you can say, this is part one of what it's like to work with me as a travel advisor or as one of my travel clients. And then putting like, this is part two, this is part three, this is the last part four, however many parts that you need. Each video, if you want to make sure that it goes out to new people, you've got to make sure it's less than 3 minutes. If you don't really care, talk as much as you want on this video. But this needs to be part of your marketing strategy, is communicating that so that people are already aware of what your process is like and what it's like to work with you, so that if you forget to communicate that during your client experience process, that's kind of like almost like your insurance policy, so that they're aware of that. So don't keep it a secret. The next reminder, I feel like this is a good reminder just in general. You need to CYA. I hope you know what CYA is, but if you don't know what CYA is, cover your beep. And the beep is a cursey word for booty. You need to cover your booty. And so that is what, including the workflows and how your different processes within your marketing, like by talking about this stuff and making them a little bit more public so that your people are more prepared, that does help to cover your booty. But also, going back to reminder number one, having agreements, contracts, having insurance also helps to cover your booty as a travel advisor. And communication, like the specific instance, and I don't want to call anybody out, but the specific instance that I'm thinking about that I had seen on social media earlier this week, I feel like this could have been solved or like avoided if the travel advisor had communicated in different ways. So if you are sending out lots of emails or like text messages, and you're not getting any sorts of response, get your booty on the phone and call them. I say this also politely to us younger ones. I am a millennial. I feel like I'm an elder millennial at this point, but I am a millennial, and calling people on the phone isn't our favorite thing, but there are times that we have to do it. So you've got to see CYA, because, man, it was, again, I'm trying not to call anybody out, but I feel like this is a situation that could have been avoided if you just, because again, like, clients are going to be clients. They're going to be their own thing. They're going to be like in La La Land, or you didn't tell me this, or I didn't see that, because we know that clients don't like to look at the things that or some, not all, clients don't like to look at the things that we send them and read through them. Or if they've read them, they've only read certain details, but not all the details. So being able to make things as easy, like you just want to make it super easy for your client to work with you, but you also need to cover your booty because there's so much liability that comes. Not only like liability in terms of like the legalities of things, but liability in terms of finances, where you may need to pay up if your client hasn't. That's the easiest way for me to describe the specific situation. If or if your client hasn't been paying attention, really. So do the things that you need to do, and that's a lot through like having processes and procedures in place. And it's also partially you being proactive and not reactive, which I talk about this a lot when it comes to marketing. Like, stop waiting for clients to come to you. Like, you go to them. You go where your clients are. The next reminder, and some of these are going to come directly from inspiration about conversations that we had at Plan Your Year workshop, is that especially if you're a newer advisor, I want you to know that you and your services have value regardless of how long you've owned this business or been inside of this industry. And that value comes from just you being an amazing, hopefully, human being that you are. This value comes from you having the guts and the courage to even start a business, because there's lots of things that go behind the scenes on that. Like talking about legalities, like you have to go to the government and open up an EIN account. You have to go to like your local government and open, here in Central Florida, it's called a business tax receipt. But there's all these like things that have to be filed to make sure that you're a legitimate business. So you've done all the hoops. You've interviewed different franchises or different hosts or maybe even consortium so that you can officially open and operate your travel agency. Do not take that lightly, that means that your services are not valuable, because they have so much value. What you are doing is saving someone time and space. I actually had a friend of mine reach out to me about an Alaska cruise, and that's something that I can do very, very well. So we got on a call earlier this week, and he was just like, yeah, I was trying to Google, and there's just a lot of information that I don't want to sift through. And then I guess he was also seeing things that are advised, like doing your own vacation, a land vacation is one thing, but doing a cruise vacation is a whole other thing. And it was recommended to work with a travel advisor for a cruise. And I was like, oh my, yeah. I was like, I don't know who told you that, but I really love that they put that message out there, because that's so great. Because other people are advising, it's not even just us in the industry, other people outside are advising people to work with travel advisors, which means inherently there is value. Whether that's saving time between like being on an hour-long wait time with a service provider, or doing all of that research to find the best options for your clients, you're doing that. Like, I just don't want you, because there was another post that I had seen where it sounded like the client was like, well, I'm doing you a favor by working with you. And I'm like, excuse me? Oh, heck no. No. I don't want you to ever think that a client is doing you a favor. Bleep that. I'm trying to be really good here. But really and truly beep that. Like, that sort of entitlement, no sir, no ma'am, no person. I don't think so. We don't do that. I'm not going to tolerate around that here. They are not doing you a favor. I guess in some aspects, yes, you're getting experience and all that, but I don't need clients hanging around your head or like holding like a carrot to your head. Like, look, here's your little commission. Your commission's here, so you got to work with me or you're not going to get that commission. No. This is not how we operate. So if you've been like apprehensive about charging fees, Also, if your host is telling you can't charge fees, well, drop that host. I'm just going to say, I don't like that. First of all, if you're an independent contractor with a host agency, they can't tell you what to do and what not to do. Second of all, you are a business owner and you have your own authority. You have your own agency. And I'm not just talking about agency, like you have autonomy over your actions. You can do, as long as it's like lawful, doesn't hurt any other people, all those like things, because I want to make sure that we're good people, but you can do whatever it is that you want to do within your business. So if somebody's telling you that not to charge fees or that you can't charge fees because you're working with them, I'd reconsider that. I would also like to reframe this conversation instead of like the whole charging a fee. What is the value of the service that you're providing? And could you expand on the service that you're providing? Maybe your clients just don't want to pay a fee, but you're doing very minimal for them. That's totally fine. I still have family and friends that I do that for. They tell me all the details. Okay, you're booked, you're good to go. And they're pretty independent people because they've cruised for years now. All they have to do is just label me as their travel advisor and all that. Then there's people that they are going to need that advisor. They're going to need you to do the research for them, for you to parse out what's the best itinerary, what is the best hotel or lodging property. Is it better to do a drive around the country, or is it better to have a driver for them around the country? All those special nuances, it's intellectual property that your brain has built up either through personal experience or you doing that research. So I believe any FIT really should definitely have a fee. It's really in cruising that like it becomes a little bit of a gray line as to like when to fee, when not to fee. But especially if you're putting in a lot of work. Not only that, if your experience is that you are providing so much information to their clients that they feel really well taken care of, that you have thought about them every step of the way, that you've gone above and beyond their expectations, the right ones are not going to bat an eye at that fee. So even if you don't have a lot of experience or you're just starting your agency, please feel comfortable to start charging a fee. And I know that's, especially if you have not been a business owner before, that's a little bit weird. That doesn't feel comfortable. So I'm going to share the story that I shared at Plan Your Year workshop of one of my really close friends. This is all, I believe she may have mentioned it last year when she was a panelist at Prep for Wave Week. We did replay that Prep for Wave Week session a couple weeks ago. This is Judy Lombardi. She's a brand new travel advisor. I think she's 2 years in. And when she first started, she did it where she waived her professional fees and she charged a lower fee at the beginning, which, okay, the lowest I want you to go for your professional fee is really $100. I really like $250 at least to start. But if that doesn't feel comfortable for you yet, then work it up. Judy did where she mentioned to her people, like, the first year of business, she was going to waive her service fees so that she could get her footing under her way, figure out what her processes were, and make sure that she was providing really great client experience. What I love about that is that you can see, like, communicating your workflows, communicating your process. She was already preparing people, like, I'm going to waive them this year, but then they're going to come full force next year or in the next quarter, or whatever it might be that you decide to do, so that they're aware that this is how you work. You're a professional. You deserve to be paid for your time. And there is a charge that comes with that, just like any other professional that's out there. Like, I'm still in disbelief that a plumber can charge like a 45-minute visit, like up to $400, I guess, depending on where you're at regionally. But and it's depending on the type of work that they're doing too. But if normal service providers can do it and like we don't bat an eye as clients, you shouldn't also be worried about the right types of clients batting an eye for that. Because again, like if I was going to be planning a trip to like Asia, or even I'm thinking like if I'm going to be planning a multi-country visit to Europe, I think I'm just going to hire one of my travel advisor friends to take care of the details. So I don't even have to learn, and then it's all set. I just have to show up and enjoy my vacation. So, yeah, that's a reminder for all my new friends that just because you're new doesn't mean that you shouldn't charge a fee, and don't let anyone ever make it out to be that they're doing a favor by using your services also. Another reminder, so this is number 5, is to know your numbers. And so this is one of my favorites because I didn't start out in business knowing my numbers. Again, I'm not a financial savvy person, but when I did the figuring out of my numbers, I was like, oh, like, why is nobody talking about this? Why has nobody shown me how? So that's like why I'm so passionate about the lead generation calculator, because it does help you figure out what your number is. Because especially if you've never done that exercise of figuring out what are all of your personal expenses that you have to cover. And then also going through like what are your business expenses, factoring taxes in, and then having your income goal. Like, how are you supposed to project how much in sales that you need to have if you don't have that number? Which is kind of like the whole reason that we do the Plan Your Year workshop, is to reverse engineer that. Because once you're able to figure out what your ideal number is, then you can start figuring out, okay, this is what I sell. How many of this do I need to sell? A lot of people were very surprised by the amount of travel that they had to sell to meet their income goals, because we've never done that exercise before. So it's very eye-opening. So you might think that, oh, I just need to sell 20 trips. Well, maybe you need to actually double that to get to your number, because we're factoring in all these different items when it comes to what your actual income means, because it's different. If you're working for somebody else, your taxes are already taken care of. You don't have to factor in for taxes when you're like getting a paycheck necessarily. And this is me coming from Florida that doesn't have state income taxes. So I don't know if you do have to factor that in. So apologies, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I don't, like when I was working in the theme parks in Orlando, like I didn't have to factor any other taxes. It was automatically taken out. Then you go to your tax person at the beginning of the year, file your taxes. That's it. And man, were taxes a lot easier back then. But like as a business owner, you need to know these numbers so that, excuse me, you can do the planning for your business. And so I highly encourage you at least to start with the lead generation calculator, so you can see, okay, I thought my number was 25,000, but it's actually 50,000. Or maybe you want to be able to replace your income. You've got to know what that income goal needs to be, because if you are making, let's just say $50,000 annually at a job, you need to make more than that as a business owner because of those taxes, because they don't auto come out. I really wish they did, but they do not. So that's my other reminder, is that you've constantly got to be on top of your numbers. And I'm not talking about like how much sales that you've made, even though those numbers are really important. And those are important to stay also on top of, but it's just even these basic numbers of what your income actually needs to be for you. Another reminder, and this is more of a rant that I had seen along the interwebs this week, was that I guess there's a tech company that wants to charge for travel advisors to be able to use Zapier, which is an integration technology. And I was like, no. I'm trying to be very nice over here. I'm like, a technology who thinks that they can charge so that you can have a Zapier integration is quite literally insane. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Zapier, so let's say your CRM, you have a travel industry CRM. If you want it to, like, somebody fills out your inquiry form, if you don't want to have to manually also add them to your email service provider like MailerLite or Flowdesk, you should be able to use something like a Zapier to integrate the two systems to talk together because they don't natively integrate. That is something that many like all the tech providers that I use. So for my tech stack with Take the Helm and the Strategic Travel Entrepreneur podcast, it's obviously going to be different than agencies, but they have native integrations so that a lot of these tech can talk to each other and also save me time from having to manually do things. Like when you sign up for Prep for Wave Week, you automatically go to my email service provider because that's a native integration that's set up. So in a perfect world, a lot of the travel agency CRMs would have native integrations with things like Flowdesk and MailerLite. I think on the back end of that, there's a lot of like building and technical stuff that needs to happen. So I feel like it's probably a pain in the booty, but it's so worthwhile because it's just extra steps that you don't have to do. Something separate from that, related but different, is using an integrator application like a Zapier to tell Zapier that it's complicated without like showing you, but you're pretty much telling Zapier, if somebody gets added to my client list in my travel CRM, I also want you to add them to my newsletter list in Flowdesk or MailerLite or ConvertKit or whatever. And it will automatically do that for you based on the parameters that you set, instead of you having to manually do that every single time. This can also be like, maybe it's a Facebook group and you're collecting email addresses. You can just zap somebody from the Facebook group into your email service provider as well. Again, saving you some time from having to do the research and looking at all of that. That, like, them making the technology behind it is called Open API. Them making the API open, I've never seen anybody charge for that. So this technology saying that it's going to, like, you're gonna have to like pay an upcharge to have that, I'm like, oh no. So that's my rant for the week. Also, enlightenment, in case you didn't know, that is what some technologies can do. The last reminder of the week has to do with ethics. This was like a LinkedIn post that I saw a couple weeks ago where a travel advisor was ranting about another travel advisor who had directly copied and pasted social media posts of theirs and used it as their own posts. And I was like, oh heck no, that's another oh heck. Like, friends, I thought these things are kind of common, like common knowledge. And when I say common knowledge, when we go to school as kids, we're told not to copy off of somebody else's paper or copy off of somebody else's test. So as kids, that's something that comes with us. So into adulthood, if we know as kids not to copy somebody's test, why would you copy somebody's content? That is a no-no. So if you didn't know that, you've been made aware now that like it is not, that's not ethical. You can't, like, if you're putting out any content, it needs to be your own original content that has to be out there. Do not copy. Now, could you use somebody as inspiration? Like maybe they focused on luxury vacations to France and you focus on luxury vacations to Morocco. Maybe you use it as some sort of inspiration and you make it your own for like your own clientele. But you don't directly copy and paste stuff. And this happened to me last year where there was a graphic that I had created. I had purchased certain templates And so I had the license to use it. Somebody saw me post a graphic. This was around Black Friday time, and used it as their own graphic because I let certain people use my graphics. If I have not given you permission to use my graphics, my videos, my photos, you don't have permission to use that. So I'm going to give you a resource, and that's episode 181 of the podcast. It's called Etiquette Essentials, where I dive in a lot more on that type of stuff. That was from last December because there was a lot of etiquette stuff happening around that time. But if you just don't want to make a misstep, or you want to see what has happened to other people, that's a really great episode to tune in on, because we don't copy other people. Like, that's not cool. That's not a good look. Like, spam bots do that, but us as human beings, we don't do that. Now, if you wanted to share somebody's post and give them credit for that post, I feel like that's totally fine. I know some people want to like be able to give the permission for that. So always, like, if you're unsure, ask the person first and get permission first in terms of using that. Like, a lot of suppliers will give their permission, a lot of BDMs will give their permission, but it's not the case for everybody. And that also goes similarly, like if you wanted to use a photo that you found on Google, you do not have the permission to do that unless, like, there's certain places that you can go, like Pexels, Unsplash. Oh man, Katie from Moxie and Forth had another really good one. I think it's Dope, DOPE, is another like royalty-free site that you can use. But unless you're going to these royalty-free sites and using content from there, or unless you've gotten express permission to be able to use a piece of content, do not copy paste that. Like, just have AI, and I don't even like that, but if you're not sure what to put out marketing wise, just have AI do it at the very bare minimum. That's not my favorite suggestion, but it's better than copying somebody else. So those are my, 7 reminders for you as a travel advisor. You need your own E&O insurance and legal agreements. You also need to communicate your process in your marketing, not just while you're working with somebody. You need to cover your booty and be proactive when it comes to covering your booty. Just because you're new doesn't mean that you shouldn't charge a fee or that you have no value to charge a fee. Definitely know your number so that you have a target of where to aim to. Zapier should not be something. So Zapier, you have to pay for that service. So a travel CRM wanting to charge you also to have that, no, that's not a good look. And I don't think it's going to stick because a lot of people are not happy about that. And then last but not least, do not copy other people's work and try to portray it as your own work. I also want to give a shout out quick to Travel Advisor in Rockford, Illinois, who sent in some fan mail on the podcast link. Hello, I just listened to your podcast for the first time, and I'm excited to listen to more episodes. I accidentally started with one from 2022. Oops. That's totally okay. Just wondering if you happen to know if Sequence is no longer in business or if it's rolled into a different company/new name. Seemed like a great product, but I can't find any info. So I don't know exactly for sure what has happened to Sequence, and you probably stumbled upon that through like the Travel Tech Audio Summit. And Sequence was a project management tool purposely created just for travel advisors, which was really cool because especially when we're thinking about processes and workflows, to have that like pre-built out for you was going to be super amazing. I don't believe it's still in existence, and I believe that because I've tried to reach out to one of the founders and just haven't heard back from them. Their social media, both like Instagram and also LinkedIn, has been pretty inactive for months now at this point. And like their website really hasn't been updated. It looks a little outdated back to me, like from 2022. So unfortunately, I don't know. but I don't believe they're still up and running. I will also do some digging and research with some of my contacts that I knew were connected to see if they know any updates on that. So stay tuned. I'll probably post it, mention it here in the podcast or over on social media. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think. You can also send me some fan mail just by clicking the link in the show description. Just head over to your podcast app right now, and you can see where it says send Rita your thoughts. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Good, bad, ugly, all of that. I want to hear it. And also let me know, is there a reminder that you have been reminded about in business recently? Was there something that happened on social media that you were like, oh my gosh, yes, I can't believe people do this, or more people need to be doing this, or whatever it is? Love to start that conversation. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Have an amazing week, and I will see you here next week. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Remember to check out the show notes for all relevant links and resources from today's show. See you next time.